Welcome to Ascension Public Schools' first Chat with the Superintendent webinar. My name is Jackie Tisdale, and I'll serve as today's moderator. The webinar will last for 30 minutes, including a presentation and Q&A session. All microphones will be muted except for the presenters. Please use the question chat module to submit your questions, and you'll have the chance to provide additional comments and feedback after the webinar. This is being recorded and will be archived on our website. Today's panelists for the webinar are Superintendent David Alexander, Assistant Superintendent Denise Graves, Director of Planning and Construction Chad Lynch, and I'm your moderator. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent David Alexander.
Well, good afternoon. I hope everybody is enjoying this Thursday. It's a beautiful day outside, and we are excited and consider it a privilege that we get to share some information with you today and get some of your feedback and maybe answer some of your questions. We have three main topics that we want to address today. We want to talk about academics and measuring academics, how we're measured by the state, and of course then how we're measuring the academic performance of our children. We want to give you some information about flood recovery, and then we want to give you some construction updates, and we will definitely save some time for the end of our webinar today to field some questions, and I'll try to answer some of those questions. So, first thing we're going to start with is, as you well know, our school system receives a letter grade each year, and then each one of our individual schools receive a letter grade. And that information is forthcoming in the very near future. As a matter of fact, as I understand it, we will get this information be released publicly the week after next week. And so, we always look forward to the opportunity to receive this rating from the state. It's a letter grade rating. This letter grade rating always provides us some insight into the things that we've done the previous school year. These results that we'll get week after next really pertain to the 2016-17 school year, have nothing to do with the 17-18 school year as of yet. And it gives us an opportunity to affirm some of the things that we already believe we were doing well. And it also always provides us an opportunity to take a look at those things where we need to continue to work. We're just like everybody else. We chasing excellent every day we get up in the morning and come to work, but we know we've not yet achieved perfection. So these letter grades provide us some insight into areas that we can continue to work on and continue to get better at serving the students in our school district. So the screen you're looking at right now just really is just a kind of an overview of how an individual school is graded. Primary schools are graded on testing results only. Every child earns a certain amount of points for a test that they take in the spring. If they score at the advanced level, they get 150 points. If they score at the mastery level, they get 125 points. If they score at the basic level, they get 100 points. And anything below basic, they don't get any points. Middle schools are graded pretty much in the same way, except they have one small slice you're seeing in there. It's called a DCAI. That's the Dropout Credit Accumulation Index. And it just really means how did their 8th graders perform when they went to 9th grade. And so it kind of holds middle schools accountable for that high school success. But the rest of the middle school is really scored again about their children's test scores in the same way as primary school. And then when you get to high schools are scored in three areas: an ACT, in 4 areas: ACT, EOC, the grad rate, and the grad index. So the letter grades we're about to receive really include just information about those categories, which is why I want to remind everybody, a letter grade is good information, but it's really around testing information. And we know that our teachers, our students, our schools, they serve our children in so many ways, even outside of these ways that are measured. Again, we welcome those letter grades. We welcome that information, but we know it does not define the entire body of work of any school out there, and so we want to keep that into perspective. I just want to plant a seed with you about how letter grades are going to change as we go down the road. So I don't want this to confuse anybody out there. As we move forward, starting this school year, the 17-18 school year, we're going to be measured much differently than we've been measured in the past. First of all, tests are going to be not awarded. The number of points that a test is awarded is going to be less than it is as compared to how it's been in the past. So when we get grades, when we sit together this time next year and we get letter grades, the testing will be we won't accumulate as many points for every test. So advanced will have 150 points, but mastery now, today, last year a mastery score on a test received 125 points. Starting this year, that same mastery performance only receives 100 points. In this past school year, basic received 100 points, but moving forward, starting this school year, basic will only receive 80 points. The graduation rate, the new target will be 90%, whereas in the past it's only been 75%. And then finally, the big thing you're seeing there is it's in sort of a reddish color on the screen, is a growth index. And this is brand new, but we're really excited about this. And we're going to talk more about this in just a few minutes. But that growth index is really, it's going to be a measure of how students not just performed in a moment in time, but how they grew from August through May in a school year. And we're really excited about that because that gives us an opportunity to measure more than just a one-time test performance, but allows our teachers, our students, our schools, and our school system to really be measured on what's important. And that's how we're growing children. Because we hope in the 13 or 14 years that we have your child from pre-K or K through graduation, that at the end of the day, that's our work. It's the body of work that goes into how we're taking students where they begin, wherever that may be, and getting them prepared for the post-secondary world in 12, 13, or 14 years later. So that growth index is something that we are definitely excited about. So just a few things that I want to bring to your attention before we get our letter grades is just some things we're proud of. This past summer, the state released information about students who scored at the mastery and advanced levels on state testing. And I want to tell you that our students, with the support of our teachers and principals and everything out there, our students were number 2 in the state in terms of scoring at mastery and advanced. And what that means is that we have worked to move students from basic, approaching basic and unsatisfactory, toward mastery and advanced. 48% of our students were at mastery and advanced during the 16-17 school year, and there is only one school district that's ahead of us, and that happens to be Zachary, who's at 54%. We're also very proud about last year's performance score at 109.3. We don't know what this year will be. We are number 4 in the state on end-of-course exams in terms of percent mastery there, and that's the high school level test. We're also very proud that, our college-going, first-time freshman college-going students at 64%. We're happy about that. We want to see that moving from number 7 on up. We certainly want children in our school system to feel like they're prepared for college if they choose to go that route. But we also know that college is not the only way to have a contribution in your adult life and to actually have a high quality of life, as long as you develop a skill set that you can contribute to your community. And that can be done in many ways other than just college. And we're certainly very proud of our current graduation rate at 88%, moving toward that 90% target that we referenced earlier. So in thinking about all of that, that's our report card that we're going to get. But your child just recently got a report card from their school here in the last week or so. And I just want to be sure that we all understand and we're on the same page and we really are partnering around that report card. So first of all, that report card is a good indicator of some of the things that your child is doing very well, and it certainly gives us an opportunity to look at things that we can work with children to help them continue to grow through this school year, just like we do with the letter grade that we receive. We don't think that letter grade or that report card defines your child from head to toe there. It is certainly just an indicator of their academic performance, any more than a letter grade defines our school or our school system, but it certainly is one of the things that we want to see in a positive direction as we move forward. Something else about the report card that I want to just reference right now. If you'll remember, I told you that as we move forward now in our accountability system, something that we're very excited about is how the state is going to begin to measure us on how we're growing students. They haven't done that in the past. As a matter of fact, the letter grade we're about to get does not have that factored in. But this time next year, remember, we are going to be under an accountability system that has that growth component factored into our school and district letter grade. And we've been working now for the last 2 years on trying to develop ways that we can customize learning for every child. Of course, when you're talking about a classroom full of 20 to 30 students, in high school sometimes it may be 30, 31. In primary school it's more toward the 20 to 25 level. But at any rate, there's a lot of group instruction, but we really want to embrace now moving forward in the spirit of 21st century learning, really trying to help students have individual learning goals. And so what we've done is we've developed a structure out here that we're getting better at. I won't tell you we're perfect at it yet, where teachers develop what's called an individual growth plan for their class. They develop this plan by looking at the historical academic data of the children that are in their class, whether it's a very young child and we don't have a lot of academic data, or an older child in middle school or high school where we may have several years of data. But we're looking at that data and setting some just kind of large concepts, growth goals for that class. And then that class's growth goals really turn into some individual goals for every student. So the reason I want to mention that to you is you recently got a report card, but along with that report card, it may not have been sent home in writing or in a document form. Your child has been given some individual growth goals in most, if not all, of their classes. Those growth goals may be long-range goals that are connected to maybe standards in English or standards in math. Those are content standards out there. Those are big areas where, it may be being able to read something on grade level and identify the main theme and compare it to the main theme of something else. But these standards out there, your children have definite individualized goals. So we want to encourage you as parents to begin talking to your children about those goals. Begin asking them about their goals. I had the privilege today, Ms. Graves and I visited several school buildings today, and we actually saw this in practice today, where I saw in one classroom, in a primary school classroom, where children were working on math facts, just your basic sort of math facts that they were doing, and they were timing themselves on how many they could get in, say, 2 minutes. And each one had a different goal. Some of them wanted to try to get 17 correct in 2 minutes, others 23 correct. These are some real things that really engage students in owning their own learning, and it gives us an opportunity to partner with you as a parent with helping us and partnering with us around that student learning. So I wanted to mention that, and hopefully that is something that we can continue to talk more about as we move forward in future webinars. So flood recovery. Let's talk just a little bit about that. We're all anxious to get back into our regular buildings, and so we have a timeline that we've been on. As we go down flood recovery, we have these estimated completion dates out there you can see. And if you'll note that we're on pace to getting most of our schools back in their hard building, their regular permanent building, by the start of next fall. We have construction going on currently at Lake Elementary and Galvez Middle School, and we're anticipating that construction beginning here really soon at Galvez Primary and Santa Monica High School. You can see the timeline, and then of course final completion of some of our ancillary services, child nutrition, maintenance, bus shop, RVTO, that is our residence verification and truancy office, and the Apple Digital Academy, which is our alternative educational programs, distance learning and things of that nature. Those will be finished by the fall of 2019. So just some Statistics around flood recovery. To point, we spent about $52 million. We just had a meeting yesterday by phone, a conference call with FEMA. We feel like that we're making some good progress now with FEMA, although we've been anxious and a little impatient in some moments. We need to get more of those. We have obligations. We need to get more of our projects obligated that we're confident they are eligible for obligation, and certainly get that cash moving in, because that cash flow piece is real important to us right now as we move toward a recovery estimate right now of contents, buses, equipment, and everything we've done of around $105 million. But I want to remind everybody that because we've been fiscally responsible and really we've been procedurally responsible here with making sure that we stay compliant with FEMA, we are anticipating and confident that a great section of that $105 million will be FEMA eligible. And so when you think about FEMA eligibility is at 90%. So, and then we also are eligible or trying to remain eligible something called CDBG grants, which may cover the other costs of that. So outside of some a few little things around flood insurance and things like that, we're certainly hoping that grants and reimbursements is going to resolve most of the $105 million. We'll remain confident there. So some quick construction updates. As you know, we've had a very generous community out here that continues to invest in our school system by providing us facilities that are upgraded and even new facilities through growth. We have projects that have been going on, finishing up from what was a 2009 bond project, and then we've recently begun work on the 2016 bond funding that our community so graciously approved back in the spring of 2016. We have work going on at Head Start in Donaldsonville. We have security upgrades going on throughout many campuses, covered play pavilions on our primary school campuses, and then we are looking at some immediate upgrades to our Apple Digital and Career and Tech Program campus. Many of you may not be aware of this, but you know, we have recently acquired back the property that's across the street from our Sorrento warehouse facility. That property is the old RPCC campus. It was the technical campus there. RPCC has moved out of that. They actually existed on our land. So we were the benefactors of receiving that land back with a building on it. And so we're looking at trying to create some opportunities there for our students in that building around our alternative programs and our digital learning and career and tech programs. Also with construction updates, you know, we have our freshman academies. The Santa Monica High School Academy opened last year, and that was a blessing in disguise when we needed that building to help Santa Monica get back on their campus after the flood. That building did not flood, and we opened it. East Ascension and Dutchtown are scheduled to move into their new freshman academies at least by January of 2018. So we'll be fully occupying those buildings, and you know, that's something that's really allowed us to expand our high schools to a larger enrollment there by building those academies and providing opportunities for also a strong transition year. So as we move through, this is just a chart that just shows you where we are. Those red things, the red colored sections on this chart just really show you where we have hit maximum capacity, which is why we're building schools. So you can see where we have exceeded capacity. We're in a lot of temporary buildings and places, and we want to give some relief there. So as we move forward building new schools now, the next chart is going to show you where those new schools will be located and see how it brings those red back down to our enrollment max on per facility within those statistics that we like to see for primary, middle, and high school. And if you'll also notice that, you know, our high schools now with the freshman academy concept there is staying, you know, close to that number of 2,200, and you see we're in pretty good shape at EA and Santa Monica. We are growing at Dutchtown. We're at getting close to a trigger there, we know. And, you know, we're already doing work on a site for a high school, but we don't have a new high school funded yet. What's been funded is site preparation. So that really brings us to the end of all the topics that we had today. And so moderator Jackie will open it up for some questions.
All right, thank you. I want to remind everyone we have some questions that have been submitted, but if you would like to submit a question, please use your question chat window in the GoToMeetings webinar menu. So our first question is, and you addressed it a little bit, but when will the future high school be built?
We don't have a target date for that because we don't have funding for the future high school yet. So that was not included in a 2009 bond project. It wasn't included in the 2016. What's been included there is, you know, again, like I've referenced, site preparation. So I couldn't speculate right now of what date that new high school would be built. Chad is here with me. I know that he knows the history of that as well. We are doing some site preparation though.
Yes, the bond project will include doing a master plan for the site, and then also beginning to spend the money on laying out the site so that when we do get the funding for the new high school, construction can go as fast as possible. And you know, we anticipate the next time we go out for a bond, whenever that is, that we can put the high school on the list if enrollment triggers are there, which they appear to be based on Dutchtown High or at the max, being at the max.
All right, our next question is, what determined the order in which the flooded campuses are restored, and why should it take so long for Sandoval High School?
So, Jackie, I didn't hear the first part of that question.
The first part was, what determined the order in which the flooded campuses are restored?
Yeah, all of that started at the same time. I will tell you that we did have some priority with Sandoval Primary. Sandoval Primary was the only campus that was not able to return back to their property. So we're still stretching that community away, a little further away from its attendance zone because they were having to occupy RPCC. They were a #1 priority. Outside of that, the work really just comes down to establishing design. I mean, you can't just go in and start swinging hammers. FEMA requires design, architect design. Then that design has to turn into some project worksheets and construction documents, and all of that takes time. Then you have to get FEMA to come in and approve some things. You have to know that you're going in the right direction, and so you know, there wasn't really there honestly was not a sequence of when what would take place. Now you would expect that Sandoval High School is the largest campus, so some of that design would take the longest time on the largest campus. Chad, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, exactly how you put it, Mr. Alexander. We started all of them basically at the same time, knowing that Sandoval Primary had to get in first to get away from RPCC. And then the biggest challenge with these is not their construction scope of work. That's pretty easy. The challenge is aligning with the FEMA rules so that you know you're going to get back all the money as much as you can. And the challenge that caused these projects each to drag out to where they're at today is that each one had its own individual challenges in aligning with the FEMA rules. Examples are things that don't align could cost us $1 million, or in one case could have been $15 million. So we basically try to get the scope of work to align before we bid it. Once you know everything's lined up, our scope is lined up with the FEMA rules and the reimbursement that's there, then we bid it. And we know that we're expecting to get the money back. Had we bid it before we knew that, we could potentially have more exposure on cost that's at our own expense.
And, you know, just as a follow-up to all of that, too, we sympathize with anybody out there that's wondering why does it take this long. We just got off of a conference call just yesterday afternoon with FEMA, and we expressed to them some of the delays that we felt like we've experienced and didn't really understand as well. So I know this push and pull here. They did tell us that, you know, they always figure recovery like this is around 18 months.
To start construction.
To start construction, and we've started construction inside of 18 months, so we feel like we're beating those timelines, although I know it's hard to be patient. Very grateful, though, that we do have temporary buildings that have been functional, and for the most part, we've continued to have high-quality education going on all of our campuses. So I think we're very blessed for this to have not been any worse of a delay at this point.
Our next question is regarding the academic portion of this presentation. I understand growth plans and goals for the class with expected standards. Are there or will there be individual growth plans for each child? And will there be future webinars or face-to-face meetings about the growth index?
Well, so first of all, yes, the goals for every child is really an individual growth plan for the child. And depending on the age of the child and where you can process like this long-term plan versus shorter-term goals, we're working with that. And again, this is new grounds for all of us. You think about, all of us have experienced school before, and if you remember, we may have had our own sort of personal goals, but nobody may have known them by ourselves. It wasn't like imposed necessarily by teachers. But when you think about the spirit of having a goal, I mean, really it fits well with who we are. If we have a health issue, we're partnering with our doctor, and our doctor gives us some goals to accomplish on our own, and we kind of monitor them ourselves. Similarly, when we start a job somewhere, our boss usually gives us some goals and targets to go out there, and we're monitoring them in partnership with our supervisor. So this is really workplace and life-ready skills for our children to begin to really be more intentional about goal setting, and it really encapsulating a bigger plan. As a child moves up the continuum of education and gets more toward high school, those goals, it could even be including some post-secondary goals out there that they're preparing for. So yes, we do hope that this evolves to be a very comprehensive plan for every student. In its very, very original beginnings right now, I think you'll find all kinds of things out there. I think you'll find some students with maybe a goal for just next week, some students for a goal for this 9 weeks, some students with a goal for this year with individual goals that kind of stepping out through the weeks. So I think it can be all of that, and we continue to look forward to working with our teachers, working with our leaders, working with our students, and partnering with our parents to make this sort of individual growth plan understandable by everybody, and certainly highly, highly functional for the success of a child. With respect to will there be more information with this, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we will want to include this in future webinars here as we move along. We want to continue to give our parents more information, because the better we understand it as professionals, the better we're able to teach it to our students so that they own it, and the better we're able to help parents understand it, the better partnership we form, and the higher likelihood that we'll actually be supporting students to achieve those goals.
The next question is kind of 3 questions in one. How soon will the new schools open? How will the names of the schools be determined? And is there a draft on how the new school district lines will be drawn?
Okay, so I will tell you that there is kind of a tentative timeline on new schools being open, and I'm going to hit some of the points here, and then I'm going to let Chad jump in on this as well. But we have Bullion Crossing. It's a primary school that's designed to relieve Oak Grove and Prairieville Primary, and we're hoping to have that open by August of 2019. Bluff Road is a middle school. Germany is a primary school, and Highway 73 is a primary school. Bluff Road is designed to relieve Prairieville and Dutchtown middle schools. Germany will relieve Duplessis and Central Primary School, and Highway 73 will relieve Spanish Lake Primary and Dutchtown Primary. So tentatively targeted opening dates would be August of 2020 for Bluff, Germany, and 73, with Bullion in August of 2019. In terms of naming those schools, we are in the process of talking with to our board about that and determining, how we want to name those schools and how we want to get others involved in picking colors and mascots for those schools. So, Chad, I'm going to let you jump in and talk about anything there too that I may have left out with that.
You actually, your answer was very accurate, but we did just initiate the process of talking to the board about naming the schools. The goal we have is that the schools be named before we put them out to bid, and then the mascots and colors maybe around that timeline or somewhere thereafter. But the board's just starting to talk about what that process looks like. Community can feel free to email their board member with any suggested names or colors. We would be glad to hear input on that.
Email us, and we'll get that information to the board. So yeah. There is a superintendent email you can send that to, and I'd be happy to begin to hear from our community on that, and then I'll get that information to our board. And so I also want to mention that in terms of like district lines, we're building primary and middle schools, so we're really not changing feeder systems here right now. So the reliefing part is what I've just discussed. Those have not been finally established just yet on, you remember, Bullion's going to relieve Prairieville Primary and Oak Grove Primary, but the actual houses, rooftops that go into the Bullion school there hasn't been a final decision made around that. And so others will follow as well. You got Bluff Road, that's middle school that's relieving Dutchtown Middle and Prairieville Middle School. We still have to finalize what those actual attendance zones will look like. But all of that will feed Dutchtown High School. Same with Germany when we get that built with relief at Duplessis and Central Primary. That'll still feed EA, and Highway 73 with the relief at Spanish Lake and Dutchtown Primary. Those will then be feeding Prairieville Middle, Dutchtown Middle, and the new school at Bluff Road, which will ultimately feed Dutchtown High School.
We did just hire a demographer, and he's about to begin work. The goal is that you take these two schools, say, that are overcrowded, example being, say, Oak Grove and Prairieville, and their footprints would be split into 3 schools instead of 2 schools. So that way you disperse the population where you have, say, 2 schools at 900 for a total of 1,800. You will eventually have 3 schools in that same footprint, each at 600 theoretically. And the demographer is a professional from Louisiana that is good at this stuff. He's experienced at this. He's going to start a process with our board to develop that and have those boundaries adjusted before we open these schools. It'll be part of our public process at our board meetings.
So, Jackie, I know we're close to running out of time. I have a final comment here as we kind of wrap this thing up. I just want to shout out to, again, our schools. Just a 30-second, 1-minute blip here on primary, middle, and high school. You know, we're proud of some things going on in our primary schools. We know that our ELA work in 2016-17 showed some great results. We have a new science curriculum we're implementing in our primary schools that we're real happy with right now. Our middle schools, we have seen some increases in math and science. We've got some great things going there, along with offering opportunities for middle schoolers to earn high school credit. Our graduation rate continues to climb from year to year. We have more and more AP courses and college credit opportunities and opportunities for students to go earn industry-based credentials in high school. So things are going very well in Ascension Parish. We're proud of the work of our students first, but certainly the work of our teachers and our leaders in those buildings. And just really, really proud to be a part of Ascension 3,000 strong that's supporting the work that goes on in a classroom every day, whether they drive a bus, cook a meal for a kid, help us clean our buildings, or greet the public. We are a great place to go to school and a great place to work.
Just want everyone to know that if we were not able to get to your question, we will try to follow up with you via email. The webinar has been recorded and it will be posted online at our website, apsp.org/webinar, as well as the presentation slides if you would like to refer to them later this afternoon. Just on the screen you'll see we do have another webinar scheduled for December 6th. You can go ahead and register for that this afternoon if you're interested, and please take a moment to answer 4 very quick questions, a survey that's going to pop up, and give us some direction on what you would like to, topics you would like to see covered in the future. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.